trauma is something definitely to be aware of, to pay attention to, but it doesn't always have disastrous outcomes. Anyone remember when he talked about what's the thing that's like the number one factor in a person having a good response after trauma? Anyone remember? Yeah. At least one person, at least one positive, caring relationship. And I mentioned a video, and I'm actually going to show you, if there's no other questions, you guys okay with one more video on trauma? This is actually just a recap. So this aired on 60 Minutes just recently, which I was super excited to see Bruce Perry on 60 Minutes, because he's like this clinical researcher guy, brilliant, super smart, and it was really neat to see him in this like kind of prime time sort of spot. So he was interviewed actually by Oprah Winfrey on 60 Minutes. And I'm not going to show you the whole interview. I would suggest you find it. I think you can find it online. If not on YouTube, on the 60 Minutes website. The entire story is phenomenal. It's just kind of looking at trauma-informed care, people who care for people who have experienced trauma. So what you're going to see right now is kind of Oprah Winfrey's response to spending time with Bruce Perry and interviewing him. And I think it's just worth looking at, as we are people who care for kids in our community. So here it is.
A Correspondent Candid with Oprah Winfrey.
Oprah, your story for 60 Minutes this week is about childhood trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of new science here about trauma-informed care. For anyone who's dealing with a traumatized child, what can they learn from your story?
Well, I think that this story is it is my hope that our story on trauma-informed care will not just be impactful, but will also be revolutionary. It certainly has caused a revolution in my own life. And I was struck by the story because it reminded me of my own childhood growing up in Milwaukee. It's not lost on me, the irony of being back in the same city, Milwaukee, where I grew up on welfare, poor, a lot of negative experiences, sexual abuse and all of that. What's the difference between a really bad childhood and being able to overcome that, and a traumatic childhood and someone not being able to overcome that?
Really, it boils down to something pretty simple.
And the answer that Dr. Bruce Perry gives you is relationships.
If you also have opportunities to be connected to people in positive ways, that can buffer some of those effects. And as you get older...
I'd like to know more about that.
What he really means is love. He's a scientist, he's not going to use the word love, but it really is about how you are responded to, valued, trusted, and loved by those around you. So I didn't get it from the people who I felt I should have gotten it from. It can be anybody who cares enough about you to ask the question, what happened to you?
Could you trace back in your mind, it was that person who made the difference?
I know exactly who did it. I know exactly the moment I started to feel valued, and for me, it was school.
I wanted to be a fourth grade teacher because of Mrs. Duncan. And I haven't seen Mrs. Duncan since then, and Mrs. Duncan is here today. Mrs. Duncan!
The moment I felt the most value was in my fourth grade class when Mrs. Duncan said to me, I was the one who was chosen to lead the class and whatever it was.
So what was I like? I don't really remember. I do remember you.
I remember you were such a fluent reader.
Well,
if I had a class full of students like Oprah, I would have been floating on air.
Mrs. Duncan instilled in me this sense of believing that I mattered. And that is what every human being is looking for.
when you first heard that I had done something in life, did you know that it was me?
Yes, I kept up with you without your being aware of it.
And it was Mrs. Duncan who helped heal you?
For me, yes. It was Mrs. Duncan, and then it was my sixth grade teacher, Mr. Graham. It was school that made me feel a sense of value and connection.
You learned a lot on this story.
Oh, I learned a lot on this story. This story was life-changing for me.
Life-changing, really?
Life-changing. And people use that word rhetorically. Life-changing. It's changed the way I operate in my business, with my people, with my school. 1, 2, 3. You say that the most important question to ask of people who have gone through trauma is not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you.
Yeah.
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 So when you see, a church being shot up, or you see, all of the headline-making stories of people seemingly gone mad, your first thought is, what happened to that person?
Right.
Right. What has been life-changing for me is the question, what happened to you? Not what is wrong with you, but what happened to you? Which is an important question, not just for people who have been so-called traumatized, but it's the most important question you can ask of anyone. I can say that of all the stories I've ever done in my life and all of the experiences I've ever had and people I've interviewed, this story has had more impact on me than practically anything I've ever done.
It's changed the way you see everyone?
It's changed the way I see everyone. So when I have an employee who is acting out of line or who is just being a jerk, I don't think, what's wrong with that guy? What's wrong with that girl? What's wrong with that person? I think, I wonder what happened to them. I wonder what happened to them. I wonder what happened that caused them to behave that way. That's what this story did for me.
Pretty powerful, huh? And I want to just reiterate that question, what happened to you? Especially if we're interacting with kids who've experienced trauma. When it's so easy to highlight the behavior, what's going on the surface, and even with ourselves asking sometimes. I think that what happened to you is a great grounding event. A few weeks ago we talked about what do we do when our lids flipped? And when we have those moments where we're experiencing the heat of the intensity of the feelings, going to what happened to them rather than what's wrong with them is a great grounding event. And we're going to go over some other ones tonight that are going to fit pretty well with that. So here we are. We've covered already knowing yourself. We've covered knowing your child. We looked at child development, what's going on in the brain, what's going on socially, what's going on trauma-wise. Tonight, we're going to get into some nuts and bolts of what's next. We know our kids. We know ourselves. We've got a good idea of what's going on in our own bodies and our own systems, and we know kind of what's going on for our kids. So what we're going to look at tonight is actually doing some problem solving. When we have consistent problems that are happening again and again and again with our kids, there's one of two ways we can deal with these problems. And we're going to look at tonight a way that actually builds connection, builds relationship, and really gets some problems solved along the way. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at changing the way we think. We're going to look a little bit at understanding why certain behaviors happen, what skills might be missing that are keeping behaviors happening over and over again, and also some plans to problem solve. What can we do when we have a problem with our kid, and actually how to do it. So there's a step-by-step process. Once we go through the philosophy, understanding what's going on, understanding why it's happening, the missing skills, then we'll get down to what's a real practical step-by-step process to go from having a problem to having a solution. So it starts off with this idea of giving an expectation. We all have expectations of our kids, right? We have things that we would like for them to do, whether they're this high or as tall as you. There are things that we want for our children to do. Can anyone give me examples of expectations? What are some rules, household rules, expectations, chores, things that are just required of your kids at home? Yeah. Be kind. Perfect. Is that a reasonable expectation? Absolutely. Yes. Good grades. Awesome. That reasonable? Sure. Saying please and thank you. So some ideas around respect and kindness, how we interact with others, some social skills. Great. What else? Yeah.
It's like respecting that there's routine and
Yeah.
there's choice time, but there's a time when we kind of gotta
Ooh.
roll with everything.
So you mean managing transitions? I can't just play Xbox all day? Sometimes I have to do other stuff too? And that there's a give and take in the household, right? There's things that have to be done, in order kind of for a household to function and a family to work together. Can I share some of my shark music with you guys? Is that okay? So one of my big shark music areas is this one here. Okay, we all have our strengths and our weaknesses. I get a little OCD with the dishes sometimes. I like a clean sink. I don't know what it is. It's just a beautiful thing. And when I ask my kiddos, hey, guess what? This is your time of the week to do the dishes. This is, we all help out. And I say, go ahead, you need to go do the dishes. When I see this, what happens to my heart? It's just exploding, right, with love, and I feel respected. I'm on the stop model, all those things. I've had an expectation. My kid followed through. I feel in control of my household. I feel like respected and loved, and I feel like a pretty good parent. What happens when I see this instead? Yikes, right? That's when the arrows start hitting the heart. So if we're going to go back to our stop model here. So as long as I'm giving an expectation and my kid's meeting my expectation, life is good. Things are good. I don't even notice if my kid has any missing skills or not because I'm not seeing them. I'm asking them to do a task and they follow through. Now, when we get this is when the arrows in the heart come and I start to feel that dip, right? I feel less in control, less possibly loved, less respected. I feel kind of a dip in my overall value sometimes, which, if I'm a red zone kind of parent, is going to send, where my lid possibly is going to get flipped. And I might say something like, she would do this if she wanted to. If she really wanted to do this, she would be doing it, right? And if I was giving the right expectations and she was, really wanted to respect me, she would be doing it. Which, if that's where I go, I'm going to go to a red zone. I'm going to feel like either I'm a bad parent because I'm not able to ask my kid to do what they're supposed to do and then follow through. Or what's the other alternative? She's just a bad kid, right? Either way, we've got conflict, don't we? Either way, I'm starting off this scenario thinking either you're rotten or I'm rotten, right? And either of those, that might send me to the blue zone if I think I'm no good. It might send me to the red zone if I think that they're no good. And when that happens, if I'm responding to the dishes not being done from a red zone, what's that going to look like? Probably anger, possibly shouting. How about some maybe unrealistic consequences? If I'm in my flipped lid red zone and she's not doing the dishes and I respond right then and there, I am very likely to say, you are grounded for the next 6 years. Right? Because my downstairs brain thinks that's a great idea. And it's going to get me a whole lot of respect and a lot of love in the household, and things are just going to be great until my lid comes back down and my upstairs brain says, you fool, you idiot. What have you done? Now you get to be the warden in your own household for the next 6 years, right? So what if we take that away? What if we did something different and we go to a grounding event? Kind of like what Bruce Perry was saying. One way is what happened to you. Is there something that happened that is keeping my kid from following the expectation? Another way of looking at this is what Dr. Ross Greene in his book, The Explosive Child, exhibits as a new and a different philosophy in interacting with your kids. He says, when these behaviors happen, what if it's not about them doing well if they want to? What if it's kids do well if they can? If they have the skill, if they have the knowledge, if they have the ability, the focus, the follow-through, if they have those things, my kid's preference is to do well. She wants to make me happy, right? She doesn't want to be grounded for 6 years or lose all electricity in the household or any of these other great consequences. She does not want any of those things. And she would much prefer when we're interacting that I'm interacting from this place where I'm feeling good and I'm proud of her and I'm happy and things are in a good space. So her preference is to do well. If that's the case, sometimes we got to figure out why they're not doing well. So this is where our curiosity, if we can ground ourselves in those moments where you feel the flipped lid, you feel the arrows in the heart, you're feeling the frustration, the heat, you're either going to check out into your blue zone and never talk to anybody again, or you're going to go to your red zone and get really loud and really angry. When you notice that, take that intervening moment. Take a few deep breaths. Give yourself that little brainstem massage if you need to, or take some big cleansing breaths. Maybe go to another room and start this process of curiosity. Kids do well if they can. She's doing well if she can. He's doing well if he can. He's not doing well right now. What's up? This is where we get curious. And if it's a trauma situation, that might be our what's up. What happened to them, right? That's making life hard and unbearable at this moment. If it's just a regular situation, we might start asking, what skills is my kid lagging in? My kid's great at some things, not so good at other things. And this process starts out by being curious as a parent. See, this is so much more fruitful and effective, because if it's just they do well if they wanna, all we have in our toolbox then is to make them wanna do well, right? Which is usually some form of rewards or consequences to make them do what we want them to do. Which if it works, great, but if not, we may really be dealing with a kid who's missing some skills. Whose job is it to teach kids the skills? This is our job. This is where we get to step in. And those things that are hard for our kids to do, we get to help. This is where that whole, we get back to the roots of our philosophy here, and parents don't exasperate your children, but instead treat them with that kindness. Lead them by the hand in the ways of the master. We want to teach and guide our kids in masterful ways and things that they don't know how to do yet. So my definition of exasperation is asking someone to do something that they just can't do, right? If you ask me to go slam dunk a basketball right now, and look at me, right? Probably not going to happen, right? Any amount of rewards, you could give me lots of rewards, I still couldn't do it. You could start giving me consequences, I still couldn't do it. I just don't have that ability, right? So asking someone to do something that they can't do is terribly frustrating. It's really, really, really difficult. So we're going to get curious. So here's the props. Dr. Ross Greene came up with this model. He's a guy who worked with a lot of kids who had difficult behaviors, who had things that they were asked to do and they weren't able to follow through with, everywhere from the juvenile justice system to psychiatric treatment facilities to kids to the public school system to just kids living with their parents in their homes. He's written lots of books. All of these are listed on the website. But he's the guy that really came up with this idea of what if this whole behavior thing we're looking at, what if we just do a little bit of a twist on this, look at it as kids do well if they can, and then it becomes our job as the parents to help our kids learn the skills that they're not so good at. Big philosophy. I mean, it sounds so simple, kids do well if they can. But really it is. It's pretty different. So, kind of how he came up with this philosophy is looking at it this way. If you ask your kid to do something, like do the dishes, only one of two things happens. Either one, he or she meets your expectations, and you're great. No big deal. Kid was able to do what you asked them to do, follow through. Awesome. The other possibility is they don't do it, or they don't do it well. If they don't follow through with your expectations, whatever they are, solution one may be that we apply a little bit of pressure. So I asked my kiddo to do the dishes. She doesn't do the dishes. I'm going to try to motivate her to do the dishes, right? What does that look like? What do we do? Motivation strategies. What do you think? Okay, there you go. Like a consequence, right? I'm going to take something away That's like a kind of this idea of I'm going to try to get you to do the thing that I want you to do by making life not so good if you don't do it. It's simple behavioral psychology 101. Yeah, yes. Bribe, okay. Give you a whole stack of money if you, no. So the difference between bribe and a reinforcement, what is it? So bribe is if you give it to them ahead of time. And a reinforcement is if you give it to them after the fact, right? So yeah, maybe some bribes, maybe some positive reinforcements. If you do these dishes, you get free time or stickers or stars on your chart or whatever it is. Which for some kids in some situations works just fine. Yeah.
I have found as a parent, so that with my lid that I use I feel comments a lot, so I would just be like, I feel
Sure.
whatever.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
start it out.
Ooh, start a conversation. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great idea to get things moving, right? This is what I see. That's going to come into play in just a few slides. Hang on. So, if you apply a little bit of pressure and you can get some follow through, great. However, for a very, very long time, we've relied on this kind of operant conditioning idea that goes back to behavioral psychology. You know, like the mice going through the cage to get the cheese, or they'll push the lever and one gives them a food pellet and the other gives them a shock. Pull out your old psychology textbooks or Google on Wikipedia, find all kinds of great experiments. Don't do them on your kids, though. So, but it's that idea of, a positive thing leads to one thing, negative thing leads to another thing, and we're trying to shape behavior. And the problem isn't that doesn't work, because for some things it really does work. The problem is when you try to apply that logic to everything, to every situation. Because with mice in a cage, they're very simple. People are not so simple. We have a lot of complex, interpersonal, relational things going on between a child and a parent. So I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm saying understand the limitations around just using rewards and consequences, because what we know from the research is that they're good at really two things. Rewards and consequences are very good at making your expectations clear and known, right? If you do this, you get a good thing. If you do this, you get your good thing taken away. Do this, don't do this. Simple things. They're also good at providing external motivation. This means as long as you're there to provide rewards and consequences, you can get the behavior that you want. Take yourself out of the equation, and typically those behaviors come back. You believe me? Well, let me ask you this. In terms of external motivation, some of you may have experienced it like I have. If you've ever been driving long distances, like Portland maybe, or maybe down to Medford, on that stretch of I-5 that's just nice and straight and your foot gets a little heavy, right? And then around the bend, you see the police officer with his little radar gun. That is external motivation. That changes my behavior. I don't know if it does yours or not. What do? Ooh, lift up on the gas pedal and you slow down, and then you never speed again, right? No? You guys are way better than I am. Because usually what happens to me is when the external motivation is gone, sometimes my foot gets a little heavy again, right? So as long as that motivating factor is there, it can change behavior. But it makes the behavior all about the external motivations rather than an internal change. Now, what I'm hoping for my kids and for all of our kids is that when we're working on changing behaviors and shaping the character of our kids, I want kids who are internally motivated. Kids who are motivated from the inside, not just because of what might happen to them afterwards. So what these motivational approaches are not good at are teaching complex thinking skills, right? Do this, you get a sticker. Do that, you get a timeout. That's simple. But it's the how do I do this? How do I stay focused long enough to do the dishes? How do I clean a room when I don't know how to do it? How do I regulate my emotions. I know you don't want me to throw tantrums and throw fits, and then I get a timeout for it, but I need to know the steps. Show me how. The how is not really taught by rewards and consequences. But they were never meant to, right? They're meant to teach simple lessons and provide external motivation. The other thing that they're not so good at is improving relationships, right? And they're good for providing structure, external control. But in terms of building a relationship, we have to go beyond just the rewards and consequences here. So, I mentioned this also. So Dr. Stuart Avalon, there's a video that's up on the website that you can see. He does a whole hour-long lecture on this that's really pretty fantastic. But he tells a story about his grandpa that had this statement, if you give a dog a name, after a while, he'll start to answer to it. So he uses this to describe why we have sometimes unintended results of just using rewards and consequences with our kids, right? If we say, if you do this, you're a good boy. If not, what's the opposite of that, right? And we might start, why can't you be more like your sister, your brother? This really isn't that hard. Are you even listening to me at all? These motivational things that we're trying to say. Sometimes, if we're calling our kids either intentionally or unintentionally lazy, unmotivated, and disrespectful, sometimes that starts to internalize within the kid. And if it's like, well, all the grown-ups are really smart and that's what they're saying I am, maybe I really am, right? So unintended. It's not like we're trying to do this, but it's good to pay attention to what the power of our words. And in that video, he also mentioned that the research that's the number one predictor of real, lasting behavioral change. Any guesses? Yes. If there's ever a question you don't know the answer to in here, usually it's relationship, right? Yes, absolutely. He said, a healthy, trusting relationship is the number one predictor of lasting behavioral change with our kids. So we should be all about building that relationship. So if we ask her to do the dishes, she does not meet our expectation, and the pressure's not working. We've tried the rewards, we've tried consequences, and there's still a problem here. We've got to try something else. So solution 2, instead of just pressure, is look at the problem in a different way. And this is where our curiosity and our kids do well, if they can, comes into it. So here's an illustration. So the old way of thinking, go do the dishes, he's not doing the dishes. A thought we might have is, he's just trying to get out of this, right? That's kids do well if they want to. He's lazy, he's unmotivated, he's just trying to manipulate and get out of the situation here, which usually leads to that red or blue zone response. I feel disrespected and I need to get control. So response out of the red or blue zone, the red may be some shouting, get in here and get your job done, or shunning from the blue zone. Maybe I'm just done. This kid, nice big audible sigh, I guess I'll never get these dishes done like I asked, which is that not so subtle message. Again, we're in our blue zone. So a different way of thinking, wow, okay, so we're asking him to do the dishes. Again and again, it's not happening. Tried some other stuff, not working. So now we come into this. This keeps happening. I wonder what skills might be missing. We get curious. What skills might be missing? And voila, there's our empathy, our light bulb moment. We get to know our kids better. We get to figure out what's driving this behavior besides they just don't wanna. This is where we get really smart as parents, and we get to know our kids better than anybody else in the world. And we get to figure out why those problems keep happening for them. And when we do, if we've got that empathy and we're in our green zone, then we can go to collaboration, relationship and skill building. We're going to start off with a good what's up. We're going to get into his mind or her mind and see what it is that's so difficult for him to do this task. And we're going to say, let's try to fix this together. So now we're not us and them. It's not a you're rotten or I'm rotten. It's a hey, kids do well if they can, and honestly, Parents do well if they can too. We might be missing some skills also. So it's, hey, we're all doing as well as we can. And the good news is it doesn't stop there. Kids are missing skills, oh well. I guess they're just missing skills, that's life. No. You see, we get to figure out what those skills are, and we get to help them get better. This is the difference between go to your room, you're grounded for not cleaning your room, and hey, let's work this out and let's figure out step by step how to do this so this doesn't end up being a problem time after time after time. It's collaboration, working together. Now the deal is you still stay in authority as the parent here, right? People get worried about this collaboration word, thinking we're giving all the power to the kids. But honestly, this takes a very sharp parent. You know, a parent who knows their kid, has done their homework on their kid, knows what's up, knows what's going on, and knows the steps of how to walk your kid through a problem-solving situation. And when you're able to walk them through the steps of that, and you come out the other side and you've got a solution, and you've both worked on it together, who do you think they're going to go to when they've got tough stuff going on? Right? That's the kind of authority where your kids are going to keep coming, keep talking to you. You're building a culture of respect and a culture of working together within your household that ultimately they're going to get to take out into the real world. So before we look at what the skills are, just a quick note on why skills might be missing. So if we remember our tree model, the skills are the leaves. These are the behaviors that we see up here. The reason those skills are missing most of the time are not up in the leaves, they're down in the branches. So there may be some good reasons why kids are missing skills. Any thoughts? Why might a kid be missing certain skills in life?
Because they haven't been led by example?
Absolutely. Maybe they've never seen. Maybe they have no idea what it looks like to regulate your emotions or be organized or be focused. Maybe they haven't had that example in their lives, for sure. Any other thoughts?
You might have expectations that aren't appropriate for them developmentally.
Absolutely. Maybe the thing we're asking is out of sync with their developmental level. If we're asking our 3-year-old to have a whole lot of focus and be really, really still and quiet, they might be having some skills that are out of sync with our expectations, right? So it may look like lagging skill, maybe development for sure. Throw the T word up there for sure, trauma. Is there a good reason why kids might be missing skills? Even organic stuff, right? Brain chemistry, biology. True story. It's to illustrate this. My kiddos are just night and day different. Same parents, same household, same rules, same structure. My older one is the one that has some difficulty following through with the dishes. My younger one, I don't even have to ask most of the time. But they're good at different things. My older one's really good at some other stuff that the younger one's not. So just sometimes the temperament, sometimes the makeup of the kid, sometimes their ability to focus is there's a genetic component or a biological component, a neurological component. So there's all of that. There's lots and lots of reasons. We won't go into all of them, but we'll just say, we'll leave it at that. For a lot of reasons, kids are missing certain skills, right? We don't typically see that they're missing skills until we ask for them to use the skill, right? If I'm not asking someone to stay focused and stay still, then I'm not going to see if they have a problem. But when I'm asking them, hey, start this task and then finish it, then we might see some lagging skills. Or a lot of times we see it when kids will start preschool. It's like at home, everything's just fine because there's certain expectations around home that they feel really confident with and they've had some time to learn. You throw them in the room with 12 other kids their size, all of a sudden there's a demand for all kinds of new skills, right? It's not just them that decide who gets to play with the toys anymore. Sharing, taking turns, all of that stuff, those take skills, and we don't know that they're there until we ask for them. But if a kid has a missing skill, and there's a demand for the skill, that's usually when we see those problematic behaviors happening, those things that we'd like to see changing. So Dr. Green broke it down into 5 big areas of lagging skill. These are listed. There's a page 27, that breaks it down even further. And what I'd ask you to do is seriously consider thinking about doing this about your child, one of your children, or both of your children. Or if you don't have kids in your home, think about this for yourself, or someone that you do relationship with in one way or another. But we're going to kind of go through just a basic summary of what each of these skills are, and then do a little practice around this. So the first one is Dr. Green calls it the executive skills, and we watched a video about that just a few weeks ago. But I break it down into, this is areas of attention, planning, and organization. This is like kids who are good at this are organized, they're on time, they're pretty tidy, they can finish what they start, and they stay pretty much on task. Kids who have lagging skills in this area have a lot of difficulty with organization, with time management, with finishing what they start. Can you think of some things that might be difficult for a kid with lagging skills in this area? Like homework, school in general. A lot of those things that require a lot of structure. If they're good at it, they've got it. If you're noticing some of those things, maybe an area of lagging skill. The next one is the language processing area. So this is broken down into kind of 2 areas. There's receptive language and expressive language. Receptive language is taking information in and processing it well. People who are good at this and are skilled at receptive language are good listeners, right? They can hear what you're saying, process it well, and put it into action. Now, the flip of that is the expressive language, being able to get your words from here to here, right? So I can think about what I'm thinking about, and I can tell you, I can express it in words. So kids who are good at this are pretty verbal. They can have communication with adults and kids alike. A lot of times they're ones who will ask questions, will answer questions, who are good at communicating what they need, possibly even what they feel. Kids who are not so good at this, ironically, are usually the ones that are told to use their what? Their words, right? Because a lot of times they'll use actions rather than words, because actions are an easier go-to if your words are hard. Good indication that there may be some lagging skill there. Kids who have difficulty with receptive language are often kids that are pegged as just bad listeners, or kids who don't follow directions. If they're having difficulty, one kid tell me, it's like, grown-ups talk to me and it just gets all jumbled up in my head when they're talking. I can't even follow it sometimes. It's like that old Charlie Brown teacher, right? Wah, 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 wah. That's kind of what it feels like. All right, the emotional regulation skills. This is usually the ones that we notice the first. This is, I call it the dealing with feelings skill. This is when you've got a feeling, what do you do with it? Can you manage it well? Can you cope with it? When you're frustrated, everyone gets frustrated, but not everyone kicks over desks when they're frustrated, right? Can you manage it? Can you tolerate it enough to maybe express what you need, identify what you need, or is it a flipped lid pretty quickly? All right, the cognitive flexibility skills. I call this the go with the flow skills. This is the ability to be flexible, to be bendy. This is kids who can, you can change their structure, change the rules, and they're going to be okay with it because they're pretty flexible. If you have a plan to go to the park on Friday, but it's raining cats and dogs on Friday, and they go, oh, I get it. We had a plan, but we had to change the plan. Feeling flexible, right? Kids who are inflexible, if you drive home the wrong way, they're going to let you know about it, right? This isn't the way home. This isn't the way we always go. What's going on here? Kids who, when we change the rules, change the structure, it's difficult. These are kids who are usually, if the skill's missing, sometimes this is a very concrete, literal, black and white, all or nothing. It's very rigid in the way they think. They might even be inflexible about the things that they think about themselves or the world around them. It's not fair. Anyone heard that one? That's some inflexibility, right? And it's letting you know about it. It's this doesn't feel right to me, and it's just not fair. Or they're always out to get me. Nobody likes me. All the teachers are terrible. That's concrete, literal, black and white, all or nothing thinking. And the last one is our social skills or relating to other skills. People who are good at relating to others are people who can start conversations well, who can make friends and keep friends, who understand kind of the rules of behavior, the normal expectations of what's going on around. They can read the room and they can read your facial expressions, right? Kids who have difficulty with this, a lot of that is lost on them. Sometimes they don't get how their actions impact other people, right? They may do something that's really offensive or really hurtful, and everyone in the room is frowning at them, and they just don't get it sometimes. That social skill might be missing for some kids. All right. These make sense? Pretty easy going? So what I like to do is, especially when a problem comes up, is brush this list out and brush up on it and think, okay, kids do well if they can. What might be at play here, right? What might be going on for my kiddo that's keeping them from doing the things that I'm asking them to do, from meeting their expectations? This is our homework. This is what we need to do to get to know our kids really, really well. And as a matter of fact, if we get good at this, this can actually help even when we're talking to other people about our kids, like school, like neighbors, friends, people that come to your house a lot. If you can start talking about your kids in terms of like, wow, this is a skill we're really working on right now. This is a lagging skill. It's not quite there. We know that this is what's going on, and we're there helping them get better at this. And this is kind of where we are with our kiddo right now. But it takes really paying attention to the kiddos, yeah.
You totally tell me if you can answer this right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I talked to one of our therapists who works with one of our kiddos a lot, and I just say, is there a point where I just need to accept that this is just not something that he can do, and like being okay with that, and like how do you differentiate between we're just not there or we're probably just not going to be there?
Sure. Good question. So kind of the gist of it is are there some of these that kids may not ever quite get to, more or less, or this just may be a difficulty for this kid on into the future? And honestly, the answer is yes. I'd love to say we can do a lot of collaboration. It's going to fix everything. However, especially for those kids who might have some of those skills that are just maybe kind of a little bit more organic in nature and maybe follow them, doing this collaboration work absolutely will help them build some coping skills and some self-awareness. You know, that thing that's just really hard for you to do, and you can talk about it and you can use words to describe it, and then you're working with them on how to work around that. That thing's tough. What do you think we can do, because we know that that's going to be tough? We know that that's going to be a hard thing. Excellent question, though. Yeah. All right, do you guys want to do a little practice? Assessing some lagging skills here. Got a few videos here, and so what we're going to do is watch a few film clips. And what I want you to do is hold out your list there, and they'll be up there too. And I want you to see if you can identify lagging skills. I'm going to warn you. Some of these clips may be a little triggering, and your first gut response may be that kid would do well if they wanted to, right? So feel it. Notice that feeling and let your attention drift over to kids do well if they can. And get in the mindset, kids do well if they can. What skills are missing for these kiddos?
Wrote my name on the last one. Thank you. My 6 stickers?
No, I have your 2 stickers, Max.
No, I'm supposed to get 6 stickers.
No, we changed the rule, remember? Now that you're getting older and so grown up, we're weaning
That's
off the
not
stickers.
fair.
So
I
you
finished
get
my
2.
homework.
Max, take a deep breath.
I don't want to.
Max, getting upset's not going to change it. You get 2 stickers.
I don't like this new rule, and I don't like you. It's just
Max.
I just
Max.
don't. It's not fair. Why do you have to come here today? Why It's a joke. I haven't learned one single thing from you since you started math.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Stop it. Math.
Hey,
You're useless. That is enough. Don't math.
Max. Oh, hey.
His heart rate elevated a little bit. Feel the arrows in the heart. What skills might be missing for this kid? Cognitive flexibility. What makes you think that? Mm-hmm. Sure. She changed the rules on him, didn't she? And had she known this is a kid who is radically inflexible, she might have needed to do something a little differently rather than just spring it on him, right? Yeah. You think? Absolutely emotional regulation. So you see how one led into another. We wouldn't have noticed the emotional regulation skill had there not been a demand also for some flexibility. If we would have just given him his stickers like he's used to, he would have been smooth sailing. He would have been just fine. We changed the rules, and all of a sudden now we notice not only is he inflexible, but he also has difficulty dealing with his feelings. Great. Any others?
Relating to others, really deep in
Sure. Yeah. The expectation around probably some things you shouldn't say, even if you're feeling upset, to your teacher, mentor, person like she is. Got grown-ups in the room, and there again, there's that emotional regulation led to some difficulty with some social skills too. Language skills okay? Pretty verbal, right? He's on point with the verbal skills, right? He's very eloquent in his insults there. He knows what's up. All right, so this next one will be a little more nuanced. See if you can see any lagging skills here.
Why do I know you? I'm new. I just moved here from Africa.
What?
I used to be homeschooled.
Wait, what?
My mom taught me at home.
No, I know what homeschool is. I'm not retarded. So you've actually never been to a real school before? Shut up. Shut up!
I didn't say anything.
Homeschooled. That's really interesting.
Thanks.
You're like really pretty.
Thank you.
So you agree?
What?
You think you're really pretty?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh my god, I love your bracelet. Where did you get it?
Oh, my mom made it for me.
It's adorable.
It's so fetch.
What is fetch?
Oh, it's like slang from England.
So if you're from Africa, why are you white?
Oh my god.
Well, stop. What did we notice there? What's some language processing? What's that? Which one? The blonde lady? Yeah. Yeah. So some difficulty around that for sure. Yeah. What do you think?
Difficulty in attending to accurately or the social skills.
Yeah, for sure. There's a little bit of social skills left and right there, right? The girl from Africa, are there some good reasons why she might be missing some social skills? Right? Totally. So she's thrown into this hostile environment at school, and she's been homeschooled in Africa all of her life, and there's some good reasons why some of these things may be really jarring. What's going on around her? So we get it. Yeah. Any others? Even just knowing what's appropriate to say and not. In this situation, even if I'm thinking it, do I really need to say it out loud? There's that kind of that moderation piece of like what's okay to say in certain situations and what's not. Very good. All right. Next one.
So now the cell's happy, but there are these other molecules saying, hey, we'd like some energy too. And it uses its own pigment molecule, chlorophyll, to carry out the action. This does not make the ribosomes happy. And poor chlorophyll is caught in the middle of this.
Chlorophyll? More like borophyll. Right?
He's a little bit stuffy in here, huh?
Don't talk to me.
Chloroplast says
And why is that?
Because you're a loser.
I don't know from these ribosomes. And chlorophyll helps a chloroplast.
No, I will not make out with you. Did you hear that? This girl wants to make out with me in the middle of class? You got chlorophyll man up there talking about God knows what. All she's talking about is making out with me. I'm here to learn, everybody, not to make out with you. Go on with the chlorophyll.
All right, what are we missing there? Yes. Yes, appreciating how your behavior is affecting others around those social skills, right? Absolutely. Anything else? Language processing? He's taking it in okay. I don't know if he's giving it out so well. Yeah, for sure. Attention. Yeah. Seeking attention in appropriate ways. That's on the list there, right? That's on the social skills part. How do I get attention in ways that are helpful? And I show this for a reason. That one is so poignant in that a lot of kids, especially Billy was feeling not so smart in that situation. So he was probably having some recognition of everyone else knows everything and I don't know anything. And I'm in that situation where I don't want to be found out. I don't want to be that kid that everyone's laughing at because they don't know what's going on in class. So the best thing I can do is shift the information or shift the attention anywhere else but on the fact that I don't know what I'm doing right now. This is a lot of times kind of class clown sorts of behavior where if a kid maybe is not so good at reading, best thing they could do is disrupt things so that kids don't see that they're not so good at that. So seeking attention in ways that are appropriate. Very good. Okay, so this last one is actually to illustrate that parents do well if they can too. So we're going to look at an example of some amazing parenting here and see if you can notice any lagging skills at all.
Sir, why did you wait until the last minute to pay your taxes?
Because I'm an idiot. Happy?
Of course, not everyone is an idiot. Some of us took our receipts and pay stubs to our accountants months ago. And at the risk of sounding a little smug...
Oh, help! Does anyone have a calculator?
Myron?
No. Will you look at those morons? I paid my taxes over a year ago.
Dad.
What is it, sweetie? Did you see a scary picture in your picture book?
That was last year's taxes. You have to pay again this year.
No, because you see, I went ahead and... Year-wise, I was counting forward from the previous...
So! I put the tax forms on top of your to-do pile a month ago.
I have a to-do pile? Marge, how many kids do we have? Oh, no time to count. I'll just estimate. 9.
Oh, you know we don't have...
Shut up. If I don't hear you, it's not illegal. Okay, I need some deductions. Oh, business gifts! Here you go. Keep using nuclear power.
Homer, I painted that for you.
Okay, Marge, if anyone asks, you require 24-hour nursing care. Lise is a clergyman. Maggie is 7 people, and Bart was wounded in Vietnam.
Cool.
If I don't see it, it's not illegal.
All right. What lagging skills do we see with poor Homer here? What's that? Kids reminding the parents? Right. So he's doing well if he can. He's obviously missing some skills around that time management, organization. What else? Yeah, maintaining focus. Yeah. Even some of the social skills, what's expected in the situation, what's not. So, very good. All right. So once you have an idea of what skills are missing, paying attention, what do you see happening, what are the problems that are consistently going on in the household, then you're able to get to the rehabilitation part. How do we get these skills better? How do we get them happening better? And the answer to that is actually doing this collaborative problem-solving process with our kids. Because we're going to take those problems, those problem areas, and we're going to do some problem solving around how to get those better. So what collaborative problem solving, what working together with your kids does is a few things. One, it builds positive attachment narratives with our kids. So that whole idea of serve and return, it's I'm paying attention. I notice that this is a problem area, and we're going to work together to fix this. Also, this is a secure attachment activity. This is some give and take. We're going to listen to each other. We're going to hear both sides, and we're going to work together to fix this. So you're actually helping to build a healthy attachment narrative with your kid when you're doing problem solving. Now, grounding, it's some people do, and it's fine. But in terms of like building that attachment, hey, let's work on this together. It's a consequence. But working together with your kids is a way to actually build that relationship even closer and still hold your kids accountable for the stuff that they're doing. This also promotes brain regulation. This is integration. Upstairs, downstairs, left and right. They've got feelings and they're downstairs. We're going to put some words and some labels on those from the upstairs. They're looking at this from a really big picture, right brain sort of scenario sometimes. This is just unfair and it's awful. We're going to move over to our left brain and figure out why it's awful. We're going to help them figure this out, and we're going to do this together with them. So we're going to help promote an integrated brain. It also demonstrates the values that we want to see. When we're working with our kids to fix problems, we are demonstrating respect, empathy, and we're training our kids to be good perspective takers. They might see their side of the problem, but we're going to help them see that there's more than one side to every problem. That other people have feelings, other people have perspectives. We're going to train our kids to look at that, to see what's going on the other side. And this is also a demonstration of generosity, of time. We're valuing our kids by taking the time to actually solve this. Instead of just slapping a behavioral band-aid, just a quick reward or a quick punishment, what we're going to do is we're going to take the time to really dig into why this is hard and hopefully come up with some things to help it not be so hard. But it takes time, I won't lie. It takes a lot more time to sit and do some problem solving than it does to send them to their room. But if we really want long-term solutions that are going to work over time, it's worth the investment. It's worth your investment to do that. So there's 3 different ways to solve any problem that comes your way. The third one is actually the one that builds all the skills. But I'm going to mention the first 2 as well. So we have plans A, B, and C. Anytime a problem comes up. So hey, go do the dishes. Hey, go clean your room. Whatever it is, it's your expectation. Plan A is the my way or the highway approach. This is an adult imposing their will upon the child. This is no matter what, you will do what I say right now. All right. When we use Plan A, we are going to get our expectations met. It may not be a lot of fun, but we're going to get our expectations met. However, using Plan A is not necessarily training any new skills. It's showing them who's the boss and showing them who's in power, but in terms of them learning how to do things that are hard, they're not getting that from Plan A. Also, it's not reducing any explosive behaviors. If anything, Plan A is actually really good at elevating explosive behaviors. They're not good at something. We're asking them to do it. Then we put a whole lot of force behind it. That's a good recipe for a flipped lid and a kid getting stuck in that downstairs brain, in that exasperated sort of state. Are there times when it's good to use Plan A? For sure. Absolutely. Typically, we're thinking about safety concerns. If someone's hurting someone else or hurting you, plan A is your go-to. You keep them safe, right? You keep them safe in the moment. You might go do some problem solving afterwards, but by golly, you keep those kids safe in that moment. Or when your values dictate. If it's high enough priority in your list of values that you're willing to deal with a meltdown, a shutdown, an explosive episode, or a lot of attitude, plan A is okay. Sometimes your values are such that you need to use plan A. But for the most part, this is what a lot of us kind of grew up in. It was a lot of the plan A, my way or the highway sort of approach to parenting. The irony of it is, a lot of times when we're using plan A, we have these negative thoughts that go through our mind, like if I don't follow through, what kind of parent am I? Or if I don't stick to my guns, how will this kid ever learn what it is that we're trying to teach them? Now, when we've got a kid with a flipped lid, they've lost their frontal lobe. They're in their downstairs feeling brain. They've lost their good thinking brain. And a lot of times the stress of the moment, they're flooded with cortisol that kind of clouds up the memory process and the thought process. This is honestly the very least likely time a child will learn a lesson, when they've got a flipped lid. So if we're trying to use plan A on a flipped lid kid, good luck, because you're going to need it, because we've got a kid who's lost their rational thinking. Remember, we need the lid to come down. So if we do want to really teach our kids a lesson, teach them how to do the things that we want them to do, plan A is when a kid whose lid's already flipped is the least likely time that they'll actually learn. Plan C, hold on. This one is a little tricky. Plan C is for the moment, removing an expectation. This is not giving in. This is not letting kids do whatever they want to do. This is being a parent who knows their kid well and knows the situation well enough to know, I can tell this is leading to a flipped lid. We are heading out of the green zone right now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to divert this. I'm going to decide that this time I'm taking this expectation away. If I'm wanting my kid to do the dishes and then the room's not clean also, instead of just like crisis to crisis, I might plan C, that room thing. Look, I want that room to get clean at some point, but right now, I want you to focus on this. Let's work on this thing. It's prioritizing our problems. This is really like choosing your battles. Which one do you want to go to the mats over? But when I do plan C with my kids, I'm usually really overt about it. I let them know, hey, I bet we can fix this, but I can see this is not the time to do it. I'd like for us to talk about this again another time, but for right now, you'll be on your way. Go do what you're going to do. When we do plan C, we're not getting our expectations met. By nature, by definition of plan C, we're taking that expectation away for now. We're also not really training any new skills with that. The main thing we're doing with plan C is really just keeping things cool, keeping things in the green zone as much as possible. We're reducing the likelihood of explosive or implosive behaviors for the sake of priorities. We're working on this other thing. When we get this fixed, then we'll work on this thing over here. So it's just recognizing, and sometimes it's even a matter of your own personal priorities. If you can tell you're going to leave the green zone with this one, if you can tell you're about to flip your lid, you have the option of doing a plan C. You can give yourself that option to say, for right now, taking this expectation away. We'll come back to it when I'm back in the green zone. So useful for choosing your battles and prioritizing your problems. So plan C may give temporary peace in the household. If you've got a household where there's just a lot of turmoil happening right now, plan C may be what you need to front load in the beginning just to build that attachment and that relationship back up again. Pick some low-lying fruit, do some problem solving on some things that are a little easier to get the routine going, get that trust built back up within your kids. But for long-term planning, we need something different to teach our kids skills. Enter plan B. This is the plan where we're working together to solve problems. When we're doing Plan B well, we're going to be in the green zone, and our kids are going to be in the green zone. We're going to reduce likelihood of explosive behaviors. And we're even just the process of working on problems together is kind in nature, and it's caring and it's empathetic. So we're pouring on those ingredients that are going to help our kids stay in the green zone until we get this thing fixed, until we get it figured out. So it reduces likelihood of explosive behaviors, but also we're going to be training some new skills just by going through the 3 steps of problem solving, and we'll get to in just a minute. And also, if we're doing Plan B well and doing it correctly, we are going to get our expectations met as parents. Anyone up for that? Yes, absolutely. This is good news, guys. We are going to get to that thing we want to see happening. We're just going to use a different way to get there. So this is useful for finding long-term proactive solutions to problems that are ongoing. This is the method for fixing those underlying things that just keep happening. So I'd say prioritize your problems. Don't try to use Plan B for everything. Pick one thing at a time. Find something good. Sometimes it's the easiest thing first. Sometimes it's a thing that's just bugging you so much you got to get some relief on it. So pick and choose what's your best thing to start. But also give yourself permission to use Plan A when needed. Don't feel like you have to collaborate with everything. Sometimes you got to put the foot down and decide this is either a safety issue or this is something we've got to do some Plan A on right now. Also allow yourself to use Plan C, especially at the beginning, if you need some peace in the household and building up that trust again. And I want to make a note here also that when you ask your kid to go do something and they do it, that's not Plan A. That's just you being a parent and your kid following through. No need for a plan. You don't need to use a plan until you got a problem, right? Plan A becomes Plan A when it becomes I'm having to force my kid to do that thing that I'm asking. So no problem. Give lots of expectations, and if they're meeting them, awesome. If they're not, decide which plan you want to use, A, B, or C. All right, Plan B. Here's the step-by-step approach for how to do this problem-solving thing. First step, listen. This is the step where we have the ingredients of empathy and reassurance. We are trying our best to see this problem through the eyes of our child. And if we've done our homework really well, we've already started this process. We already get, my kid's got some lagging skills. What does the world look like to a kid who is chronically inflexible? It's hard. When they're constantly being asked to do what's hard all the time. What does the world look like to a kid who just cannot focus for the life of them? And they're being told constantly, pay attention, get back on task, do this, do your room, do your home, and that's that. And if focus is their big difficulty, what does the world look like? It's difficult, it's challenging. So get in the mind, get in the eyes of what's going on for your kid. How this starts is with a neutral observation. Hey, I've noticed that, and fill in the blank. No judgment, no condemnation. This is, hey, it looks like when I've asked you to do the dishes, it's hard for you to get those done lately. I wonder what's up. We're taking that problem outside of them, and we're just taking it out here and looking at it. Hey, that thing that keeps happening. Well, let's take a look. I wonder what that is. I wonder what's going on up there. I wonder what's happening for you. I've noticed that this keeps happening. What's up? Using our active listening and our empathy skills is super, super important here. We want to use eye contact if it's appropriate, if our kids do well with eye contact. We want to keep our voice tone even. This is the engage, don't enrage. This is the connect before you redirect. This is that place where you really are doing everything you can. And that reassurance is, hey, you're not in trouble here. I really want to help you get this figured out. I really want to hear what's going on from your side. And some kids are a little skeptical of this because they're used to it always being that they're in trouble, or it's a lecture, or what are you going to make me do now? So this is different. I really want to hear what's going on for you. I've got a little video here to demonstrate some empathy skills. See, this might be helpful when we're starting off our Plan Bs.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you can climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
We start off with empathy. I've noticed this is going on. What's up? We allow a platform for our kids to really explain what their world feels like. And for some kids, this is the first time anyone's ever asked them. And for some kids, it's really hard, and they might need some reassurance. So once we get down to the roots, we figure out what it is that's their concern. Then we've done our job in step 1. Our total goal is, what's up? Oh, this is what's going on. This is what's happening in that situation. When we've helped the kids figure out what their concern is, we jump into step 2, which is the describe step. So we start with listen, then we describe. We define the problem. So your concern is this. My concern is this. This is where we put both concerns on the table. From your perspective, this is what the problem looks like. From my perspective, this is what the problem looks like. Now, they don't have to agree with you, and you don't have to agree with them. It's kind of the magic of this process. What we're doing is we're understanding each other. You may think that their concern is ridiculous, and they might think yours is ridiculous too. But you know what? We're talking about it, and we're listening, and we're doing our best to say, oh, I can see why you would think that. I can see why this is hard. I can see why this is a difficult thing for you. And for our kids, we're training them to see other people's perspective. So when you're doing Plan B, every single time you do it, you're giving your kids a dose, a training lesson in empathy and perspective taking. This is what the problem looks like from my perspective. So we're just about ready. We've got kids' concern. We've got the grown-ups' concern. And what's left is our brainstorming session. And this is actually called the invitation, because this is where us as parents invite the child to come up with some solutions. What do you think we could do about this? How do you think we could fix this? So this is how you see it. This is what's important to you. This is what's important to me. What do you think we could do to fix this problem, to fix the situation here? And again, a lot of times this is the very first time a kid's ever been asked what their idea is in solving this problem. And a really cool thing happens, and I've seen this again and again, where when parents will start using this with their kids, the kids go from a place where their identity is, I'm the problem maker in this family, and I keep messing stuff up, to, I'm the problem solver. I'm joining my parents. I might have some ideas that makes things better for my family. I might have an idea that fixes this thing that's been causing us so much trouble. So their identity, the kid's identity, is fundamentally changed from being the problem to being a helper and being a part of the solution. It's incredibly empowering when kids step into that role, when you ask them, when you actively invite them to come up with some solutions. When you do this, they may not be good at the invitation part yet, right? Or they may come up with really ridiculous solutions, which is fine because you're talking, right? You're partnering. And you get to help them with some logic skills too, right? If the solution is we get $1 million first and then all our problems are solved, what you say to that is this little phrase, that's an idea, right? You're not saying it's a good idea or a bad idea. You're just saying, that's an idea. Can you think of some more, right? We keep the ball rolling. We keep it going. We want to promote creativity. We want to promote that they're actively engaged in the situation here. Now, also, they may come up with solutions that don't meet both concerns. And that's when we kind of help out in the process also. We look at them. Hey, that's an idea. Does this really meet your concern? Yeah. Well, does this meet my concern? Ooh, it doesn't. Let's keep going. Let's keep at it. I bet you we can come up with something. So you're actively engaged in it. Yeah. Yeah, probably on the cusp. They say around 3 is around the time you can start with like baby steps of collaborative problem solving. But even using some of the language to start off with, if they grow up and you're doing this perspective taking thing and asking them what's up and asking them to describe what's happening for them, they're going to be ready for this by the time they're verbal enough. So, but yeah, I typically developing 3-year-old on through adulthood is kind of what it's indicated for. But when I say typically developing, so if there's some delays, if there's some other things that may make problem solving difficult, verbal skills, developmental delays, we might need to wait a little bit longer as well. But I think, for a lot of those kids who have some of those difficulties, this process slows everything down. Instead of you talking at them and it's a lecture and there's these big expectations, it's, hey, let's break this problem down into little simple parts and see if we can't put them together and come up with something. So we've listened, we've described, we've invited, they've come up with some solutions. What do we do next? Give it a try. See what happens. And this is where the magic of it really happens, because sometimes you'll give it a try and it works, and that's great. If you try your kid's solution and it does not work, what have you lost? Not much. You've had this whole time of building a relationship with your kid. You're working on verbal skills. You're working on perspective-taking skills, logical reasoning skills. We're anticipating consequences of actions. If I do this, what's going to happen next? We're giving them a dose of all of these missing skills by doing this process. We've also taught them who do they go to when they have problems. We're here to listen. We're here to work with them, right? We're here to help them fix those things that are just so hard to fix. So this is what it looks like, guys. This is the plan B, problem solving. You regulate, you relate, and you resolve to build some new skills with your kiddos. Looks really easy. It's a little harder to do in person sometimes. recommend being in the green zone when this happens. This is the kind of situation where you need all of your clear, functioning, rational thinking skills as much as possible. But I would say give it a try, even part of it. Even if you just try doing some empathy and some listening with your kids. If you can get to define the problem where you're describing, hey, this is what's going on for you, this is what's going on for me. If you can invite your kids into the problem-solving process, it really, really does take practice, though. I've got some practice sheets for you, some step-by-step. These are great. This is not a trick you're doing on your kid where you're coercing them. You can pull these sheets out and say, hey, mom and dad are learning something new. We're trying something different here, and we need some help with this too. But I'd say give it a try. See if there's something of this that you can do. And boy, I've seen it in action a lot of times, and just from personal experience. So, in my household, my kiddo who lacks focus and has difficulty doing the dishes came up with this genius solution where she builds this little chair barrier in the kitchen that keeps her there. And if I would have told her to do that, she would have been so mad. But it was her idea, right? And she felt empowered, and she's doing it, and she's like, man, I got this. I'm doing this, and she's a champion, right? I mean, she knows that this is how we do things in our household. So it's just give it a try. See what happens. And next week we will start working on some play therapy stuff, ways to connect, ways to build intentional times of relationship with your kiddos. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.